Welcome to Charts Today. My name's David Linton, and today's edition for Thursday, the 17th of January, comes to you from London. And we start by looking at the dollar index. We see the dollar pushing higher. UK government surviving the no confidence vote last night. So interesting to see that we're seeing that dollar strength holding on. Still bullish on the short-term chart, but with downside targets. So a little bit of a mixed picture. The euro sinking lower against the dollar, and the yen, we're seeing the dollar holding its bullish tone here with upside targets. So it does suggest that the dollar will hold through. We tend to see the dollar yen as the lead indicator for the dollar. Looking at sterling, fairly flat after that no confidence vote in the UK last night. So the political turmoil still there, but the uncertainty is not really having a massive effect on the sterling at the moment. Still bearish in the long term and medium term charts, though, of course. And against the euro, we're seeing sterling actually climbing quite strongly over the last week. Against the Swiss franc, also looking quite strong, and against the Aussie dollar, just a little bit weaker this morning, but still on a bullish trend on the short-term chart. Bitcoin still down 0.5%, just really going nowhere, and still bearish long and medium term. The US stock market, we saw little change last night on the S&P 500 index, up 0.2%, and the Nasdaq also just up slightly. The Dow up 0.6%. So still looking good short term, but work to do on that medium term chart to make a new high. And the Russell 2000 was up 2.2%. The futures this morning in the US down 0.4% on the S&P, and the Nasdaq E-mini down about 0.5%, so it does suggest a lower opening. FTSE 100 is down 0.25% this morning, really reflecting that US future position. And the 250 is flat, little changed. The DAX is down 0.5% as well, and the CAC 40 is down 0.2%. These charts all still looking bullish, medium and long term. Interesting, the Dow actually bouncing on its cloud, but the European markets actually long term bearish. Looking at the Japanese market, it was up slightly on that weaker yen. The Hang Seng was down 0.5%, and the Chinese market down 0.4%. Looking at the Indian market, we're up 11.1%, so we are seeing a medium-term transition to bullish here. One of the few markets actually getting back to bullish, and the Aussie market was up as well, up 0.25%, but still struggling to get to that bullish transition. Crude oil is down slightly this morning, but we're holding that $61 mark, so we are seeing we're in bullish territory here. WTI similar, and US nat gas sitting at $3.54. So looking like it's preparing for a breakout, having had this run this week sideways before another kick up potentially. We do have upside targets, none of which are really activated, so it'll be interesting. Keep an eye on the 1 minute chart if you're trading nat gas. Gold is 12.94, so we're seeing that also just trying to break this resistance level. It's like we've had the move up sideways in December, another kick up sideways. Looks like we've got potential to break, and we've got some upside targets here, some 2% higher. So interesting, the long-term chart also breaking through there. Silver, not quite as bullish, and US 10-year yields also still sitting in the doldrums at 2.71%. And looking at the German bond market, looking stronger, bonds rising on lower yields. Apple was actually down 1% yesterday, so bucking the Nasdaq there. Alphabet was actually down 0.35%. Facebook actually bucked the trend up 0.1%, and Amazon was down 0.5%. So we're seeing still a mixed picture. Apple, of course, being the bellwether, just trying to get bullish, but not managing it. On the medium term, we're still very bearish. Will we hold on to this long-term support level that we're seeing on the cloud is a big question. This data all coming from Thomson Reuters Icon. If you're a private user, Metastock Zenith, it's the same thing. Very powerful, gives you global data. And intraday, of course. This screen is from Yahoo, and looking at Yahoo this morning, we see we had the green here. We did actually have the Nasdaq just very slightly down yesterday, but not much. And we're seeing in Asia a real split here: Japan, Hong Kong, China, India down. The rest of the markets actually up in Asia. Taking a look at the Nasdaq 100, just looking at the percentage changes, we did see a line up points up 6% yesterday. Not enough to really change the bearish nature of the medium-term chart. And then if we look at Wynn Resorts, they were the best performer in the Nasdaq. On the downside, we had Express Scripts down 3.6%. Ironically, the stocks that are down yesterday are the ones that are still in bull trends. So we're seeing that through and through. Here we see it on Fiserv, bearish negative on the short, medium-term chart, but long-term chart still bullish. And of course, you can do this on any of your holdings. Looking at the Aussie market, just looking at the percentage changes here, Investor Office up there as well. Whitehaven Coal up 3.7%. A2 Milk up 3.68%. On the other end of the scale, we did have some pretty big fallers. Sierra Resources down 5%. This chart's still looking pretty bearish and massively underperforming the Dow, down some 60% relative to the Dow over the past year. Looking at China, we can see here we had a handful of stocks up on the Chinese market, but most stocks were down. And so we are still seeing some really big lows there. China still looking very bearish as a market. The Hang Seng only again a handful of stocks up. On the downside, Country Garden Holdings down 3.5%. They were the worst performer on the Hang Seng. Looking at the Nifty, we see here Axis Bank actually was the best performer, up 2%, and that chart looking really good. Got good upside targets. They are there. It just shows they are there. You just have to click on them and find them. We've got upside potential there and lots of upside targets, outperforming the Dow 24% over the past year. On the other side, we had Sun Pharmaceuticals down 4%, so and a pretty bearish looking chart. With a further 11% downside according to that target. The Nikkei, we had a pretty mixed picture on the Japanese market, but mostly up. We had 4.5% increase on OGI holdings, but interestingly, the chart's bearish. On the other side, Shikoda down 6%. They've had a terrible time collapsing towards the end of last year, and it continues for them. Looking across to the European market, we start by looking at the FTSE 100. Just where the performance is, we've got Sage up 5% this morning, so they're looking better. Associated British Foods reporting from Primark this morning, again up 5%, so we are seeing a bit of a relief there. Just Eat had a terrible year last year, but just starting to turn bullish above the clouds, so that's looking a little bit better. Experian, Royal Mail had a terrible year again, up 1% this morning. Looking at the bearish charts, we've got ITV down 6%, Ashtead, and looking terrible on the chart, Ashtead Group down 2.8%, EasyJet down 2%. So we are still seeing some quite interesting moves there. FTSE 250, we're seeing here, if we look at the FTSE 250, we've got Thomas Cook Group down up 1.8%, so they starting to look a little bit better, trying to recover off that December bottom. Vivo Energy up 2.65%, and again transitioning on that longer term chart. Looking at the other end of we've got Superdry down 2.9%. Their woes continue. Entertainment One down 2%. Looking at the Euro Stoxx 600, we have Aker BP in Oslo down up 5.7%. AB Foods and Sage we talked about. Metro Group up 2.89% in Germany, just trying to get back into bullish territory there. And looking at the downside, we see ITV leading that leaderboard on the 600. We've got in Vienna Volstein down 6%, and RTL down 5.7%. Again, terrible looking charts and dots for downside targets. Just remember, you can click on any of your stocks here, and this data all coming from Yahoo Finance, so it's a good free data source. That's it for today. Until tomorrow, happy charting. See you.